Yeah, the name of Rabbeinu from Shell and along with the Rabbi King of Shell and So this week is the week that we complete the fourth Sefer of the Torah. And the Rabbi Malchus says, Poitzkin the Dvar Malchus. I just keep seeing this Sicha in Tashon and Aleph. I kept seeing the Sicha. The Rabbi Malchus says, Poitzkin the Dvar Malchus means we begin with Dvar Malchus. And I realize that that's the lesson. We have to know that the Dvar Malchus Sichas are not in any way, the last Sichas. It's the opposite. These are the Poitzkin the Dvar Malchus. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of the, hopefully, we'll see clearly that this is the beginning of the new Torah insights of Mashiach. And that's the idea of Dvar Malchus. It's the beginning of all the new perspective of what it says, that called Torah Sodom Lama B'Elam Hazeh heavily L'fnei Torah Sishon Mashiach. All the Torah that a person learned before the understanding of Melech HaMashiach is counted as insignificant, completely insignificant in comparison to the comprehension of the Torah of Mashiach. So, the way that Mashiach explains the Torah. Which that is a very, very significant thing in itself, that the Rebbe, Malchus is not giving us any completely new ideas, which in any way, Chas v'Shalom, take away from what was written earlier. Rather, what the Rebbe Malchus does is take all the stuff we knew until now and gives us a much better clarity of it. And that's, the Rambam writes that Mashiach is immersed in the written Torah and the oral Torah, and he doesn't, Chas v'Shalom, change from anything that was written earlier. So just a number of things that maybe we could look into in this week's Dvar Malchus from Tashon and Aleph. So the first thing that I want to mention is just a number of things that are unique, that the Rabbi Malchus is explaining to us that we have reached, and giving us different unique insights that we have never possibly thought of as a result of the special time that we are in. So we have a better understanding of the different times of the year, and this time of the year of the 3 weeks. So, in general, Hashkal Rods we had in the Rambam recently, the halachas of the 9 days and fast days. And the Rambam is speaking about the different things that we need to do when it comes to these days. And the Rambam speaks about that there's certain prohibitions that begin the week that Tisha B'Av falls out. And there are prohibitions that begin, according to some, the Rambam writes, begin already from Rosh Chodesh Menachem. But the Rambam does not mention any prohibition that begins from the 17th of Tammuz. The idea of having 3 weeks of mourning, which is the prevalent custom in today's times, is not mentioned in the Rambam. And if someone is comparing what the Rambam is writing, which is more the bare minimum according to the Gemara and the Iyunim that were until the time of the Rambam, if we compare it to what's the custom and the halacha today, we see that in general we are much more strict in these halachas than as the Rambam is writing it. So the whole concept of the 3 weeks is not mentioned in the Rambam as there being prohibitions of mourning as a result of mourning during this time. And this is something that more came seemingly in the later generations. And certainly, as time goes on, this is something that we see in the other halachos which we actually studied today in the Rambam, that the Rambam is bringing about the laws of Hanukkah, that we light every person. And today the Ramah writes that it's a minhag pashut, it's the accepted minhag among all Jews, that every person in the family lights a whole menorah, that every night they add additional candle. And the Rambam writes that that wasn't the accepted custom in his time. In his time, the accepted custom was one menorah per family. And the Dvar Malchus explains in a, if I'm mistaken, in a letter, that the reason it became the accepted widespread custom that everyone lights a menorah, a full menorah, and every single person in the family lights it, and the men and boys especially, and women are not customary to light it, but the men and the boys. So that's because as the later generations go on, we're adding in more stringency and being strict when it comes to Jewish law. And that has to do with I don't remember at the moment the reason why, but as generations go on, we are more and more strict. And it's similar to the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, there were additional stringencies that were added in addition to the first Beis Hamikdash. If I'm not mistaken, that's what it says in the letter. So when it comes to the laws in general, we see in general, when it comes to laws, as time goes on, we're more and more strict. So one of these examples would seem to be the example of the concept of 3 weeks. That we have 3 weeks of mourning. It's not mourning that just begins from, as the Rambam says, it's just the week that Tisha B'Av comes out on. And then the Rambam just mentions one thing, that there are those that stop already from Rosh Chodesh. The custom already is that we have the 9 days, we start already from Rosh Chodesh. Everything, all the prohibitions begin from the 9 days, and then we already have 3 weeks of mourning. In this Sikha, the Dvar Malchus is coming and telling us that we have to also see the 3 weeks also in a positive perspective. And we have to realize that being that we're coming very close to the Gula, everything that we have is only a step towards coming to the Gula. The whole destruction of Beis Hamikdash is only in order that we'll have the third Beis Hamikdash. And the closer we come to the third Beis Hamikdash, the more we could recognize that these things are not only something that was negative, but there's also a positive aspect in it, because it's going to bring us to the final Gula and the final and eternal Beis Hamikdash. So that is taken, and one of the examples in the Sikha is that the 3 weeks corresponds to the third Gula and the third Beis Hamikdash. So we have to keep in mind that the number 3 in general, and that's we have, like it mentions in the Sikha, this week is Parshas Chazak, Shabbos Chazak, but we're concluding the 4th Sefer of the Torah. So the strength is when it's 3 times, and that's eternity. And that's the idea of the 3 weeks, is that it's eternal. It's going to bring us to the eternal Gula and the eternal third Beis Hamikdash. So on one hand, we are more strict because we added these whole 3 weeks, and there is a whole in the next Dvar Malchus in Dvarim. There's a whole explanation as to how that is in this Kabbalistic sense, that the 3 weeks correspond to the 3 faculties of the brain, and the 7 weeks that follow, which are called the Shiva de Nechemta, that corresponds to the 7 middays. So the 3 weeks have a deep meaning, and in this Sikha it's explaining that there's something positive to the 3 weeks. So the 3 weeks correspond to what we're going to come to as a result of this time, we're going to come to the third Beis Hamikdash and the third Gula. So, on one hand, we have the additional stringency that we added these 3 weeks for mourning, and at the same time, in the present time, we're seeing more how this is also something preparing us for the ultimate Gula. So that's one thing. Another thing, in this Sikha, the Dvar Malchus says something that in my knowledge this is the first time. It could be also symbolic, but in general, this week, these weeks, and especially it's clear in this Sikha, that the Dvar Malchus tells us it's also in the Shalach. You can't do that. In the Shalach, so we have in Parshas B'Shalach, we have Tavshin Beis also this idea that the Jewish people throughout the time of Golus, throughout the time of history, have 42 stages. And when we finish the 42 travels, we reach the time of the Gula. So it speaks about in that Sikha, and this Sikha is a very big, this is the clear Sikha. The Dvar Malchus mentions this upon other occasions a lot, it seems. There's a Makud Sikha, if I'm not mistaken, Shelah Beis. I'm looking at now, there's a Sikha in Makud Sikha, Shelah Gimel, about the Jewish people throughout the time of Golus going through the 42 travels. And then, when we finish that, we come to the final stage of the final stage of Mashiach. Okay, so this is the words of the Dvar Malchus in a different Sikha from Pasuk Lamed Hey. This is going to be a little bit less than 20 years before the Sikha in Tavshin Aleph. And the Dvar Malchus says like this. It's explained in Chassidus and in the Maimarim of Parshas Maseh that the going through the time of Golus is similar to the Jewish people going through the desert. And just like when they went to the desert between the land of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, and Eretz Yisrael, there were 42 travels. Similarly, there are 42 travels during the time of Golus till we reach entering Eretz Yisrael through Mashiach Tzidkenu. And entering Eretz Yisrael of Mashiach Tzidkenu is hinted to when they finish the 42 travels. They reach the final place they reached before entering Eretz Yisrael. Upon entering Eretz Yisrael is Yardin Yerechai, and the level of Yardin Yerechai, the river of Yerechai, is the level of Mashiach. Merch Vadai. Okay? So in those sikhas, like in this sikh and Tavshin Lamed Hey, and there's a sikh in Makud Chelik Beis, if I'm not mistaken, and there's a Makud Chelik Chaf Gimel, Parshas Maseh mentions it also, that in the time of Golus, we go through these 42 travels. Now the chiddush in this Sikh of Dvar Malchus is that we actually reach the Yardin Yerechai. And all those other Sikhs, it says we have to go through it and then we will reach it. And in this Dvar Malchus Sikh, the Dvar says we reached. We are already standing by Yardin Yerechai. And to make it clear, Yardin Yerechai has two sides. Actually, in today's Chumash, there's the side of Yardin Yerechai on On one side of it, that's before they went into Eretz Yisrael. On the other side is when they entered Eretz Yisrael. So the Rebbe says that makes it clear at the end of the Sikha that we're not on the other side of the Yarden. We're not already in Eretz Yisrael. We're at the Yarden Recha, but we're on the side that's about to be in Eretz Yisrael. Yarden Recha is the river between outside of Eretz Yisrael and in Eretz Yisrael, and we're on the outside part of it. We're not on the inside part of it. That's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that every detail the Dvar Malchus that says in the Sikha is extremely accurate. Now, I spoke about this actually when I was by the Dvar Malchus a little while ago. I saw the Sikha, or as a mimer, if I'm not mistaken, actually about this topic. So what was the Sikha was speaking about that when a person judges his friend, he thinks that he knows the whole story, so he might misjudge him. But it says about Mashiach, which is in connection to this Merech Vadan. What does Merech Vadan mean? So Rashi, there's in the footnote two sources to look at. One is the Gemara, and one is this week's Likutei Torah in this week's Parsha. And the Gemara says that Mashiach is Merech Vadan, and Rashi explains over there that Mashiach doesn't base his judgment on what he sees or what he hears, rather he bases his judgment, he could sense who's the one, what they did right or wrong. He could sense on them, like so to say, with the sense of smell. He doesn't have to see or hear. He could, with the sense of smell, he could sense if they did something wrong or not. And in that Maimer, the Dvar Malchus says that brings in the Rebbe Rayat, that the Rebbe Rayat said that what this means is that when a person sees someone else doing something, he could think that he knows the whole story. So he could judge them based on what he sees, but if he judges them based on what he sees, he could be getting the whole thing wrong. Because maybe it's completely different. Maybe the person had a whole reason behind what he did. And maybe there's he didn't even do what you think he did. And that's what it says about Mashiach. Mashiach is going to not judge based on what he sees, rather he's going to know all the reasons for why the person did what he did, and he's going to judge the person more favorably as a result. In that mimer, I'm saying the mimer, the Rebbe Malchus says over there that a person has to be very, very accurate in the exact terminology that the Rebbe Malchus says, the Rabbeim in general, and the Rebbe Malchus is speaking about over there about a Sikha, the Rebbe Rayat. The exact terminology that they use, even in a Sikha, is accurate. Now, in this Sikha, it actually says that a mimer is much more accurate. You have to be careful. I don't know if it's accurate, but it's much more. You have to be much more careful when you explain a mimer than when explaining a Sikha. But certainly a Sikha also, well, says is very, very accurate. So I wanted to, with Hashem's help, analyze the exact wording, which I don't have in front of me, but based on my recollection and the comparison to this is a different Sikha on Tafshalam Gimel. want to do a big lesson, could you just so the Rebbe says in the Sikha that we finished all the travels and we reached Yardin Yerechai, and it says in parentheses the aspect of Mashiach was Merech V'Daim. Okay. Now this is another Sikha. This is in Tafshan Lamed Gimel. And in this sikha is very similar terminology. The terminology is common. The sikha and Tafshan Lamed Hey also said it, but I'm going to concentrate right now on the Tafshan Lamed Gimel. So it says that we're going to reach the Gula, and we're going to reach I'll read exactly what it says. It says it should be fulfilled. The pasuk in our parasha, these are the travels of the Jewish people that left the land of Mitzrayim, and based on the diuk in Makudei Torah, it says the travels in plural. Although the actual leaving of Mitzrayim was one travel, but it says in plural travels. Why? Because each travel was leaving Mitzrayim. Every time you go another step, you're leaving your previous limitations and you're going out of your previous limitations. So every travel is a new, so to say, a new leaving of Mitzrayim, leaving your limitations. And likewise, the final Golus, which is connected to the Golus of Mitzrayim. So we should have that. The Rebbe says the same. We should have that. We should be constantly leaving our limitations until we come to Yardin Yerechai. We come to the river of Yerechai, the revelations of La'asalavai, the revelations of the time to come. And what it says about Mashiach, V'hirichu b'yiras Hashem, he'll smell, with the fear of Hashem, that he's going to be Merech V'Daim. He's going to smell and he's going to know with clarity. V'Daim, technically, if I'm not mistaken, it means V'Adais, it means certainty, but it's in plural. That's what V'Daim means. Could also mean any judges, maybe. In the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, and in the true holy redemption through Mashiach Tzidkeinu very soon. So over here, the Rebbe says this, dividing it into two. There's Yardin Yerechai, has two aspects in it. One aspect in Yardin Yerechai is that it's the revelations of the time of the Gula. Okay, it's the revelations of the time to come. That's one aspect of Yardin Yerechai. Another aspect of Yardin Yerechai is that it's referring to Mashiach himself. It's not referring to the revelations of the time of the Gula. It's referring to Mashiach himself. That about Mashiach it says, V'yirichu b'yiras Hashem, that he's going to be Merech V'Daim. Secondly, it would seem it's the other order, because technically it's first Mashiach and then is the Iyunim of the time to come. But that's Ashkaraz we learned today. Sometimes things are backwards. Exactly why it's backwards could be in the Gemara. There's the different, and it says that sometimes there's the order of Loizu Avzu. Not only this, but even this. So that could be that's the idea. But and what's certain is that the Rebbe says that it's over here dividing it into two. We have Yardin Yerechai referring to the revelations of the time to come, and we have Yardin Yerechai in reference to Mashiach. Now, in this Sikha, the Dvar Malchus says that brings the pasuk of V'yirichu b'yiras Hashem. The Goyma. In the Sikha, it mentions this pasuk, and he's going to smell with the fear of Hashem. Okay, this pasuk V'yirichu b'yiras Hashem, is not mentioned in Dvar Malchus. It doesn't mention the Sikha in the Sikha of Dvar Malchus V'yirichu b'yiras Hashem. Okay, now that's mentioned in the Gemara. The Gemara says the concept of Merch V'doin, which is mentioned in the footnote. To look at the Gemara in Sanhedrin, so the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that how do we know that Mashiach is Merch V'doin? That's from the pasuk V'yirichu b'yiras Hashem. He's going to smell with the fear of Hashem, but it's not mentioned in the Sikha of Dvar Malchus. So it seems at the moment, that the V'yirichu b'yiras Hashem is not the main emphasis in the Sikha. Obviously, the fact that Mashiach is V'yirichu b'yiras Hashem is no question. There's no question that that's what the Gemara says, but that's how it's mentioned there. So possibly, what's certain and what's possible. What's certain is that everyone says in the Sikha says that we reach the level of Mashiach, which is the Merch V'doin, and as a result, like the Rambam says there, as a result, our Ahavas Yisrael has to be not only in order to fix the mistake of Galus, but also as a beginning of the Gula Mitzvah Shlema of love, which is without any differentiation. We love every Jew equally 100%, which is the complete unity of the Jewish people, which is characteristic of the Gula. So, practically speaking, everything has to have a practical conclusion. Okay? The Rebbe considered is telling us something very unique that we haven't ever heard until that Sikha, or the Sikha right before that, 2 weeks before that, and that is that we already reached the level of Yardin Yerechai, which is the level of Mashiach. Okay, that's Merch V'doin. There's a lot of explanations about it. The explanation in the footnote source is L'kutei Torah. And over there, the Alter Rebbe explains that what is this level of Merch V'doin? Because if it says that that's the level of Mashiach, and we're up to that, we should know what it is. So it says in L'kutei Torah it says that is the fulfillment of mitzvahs because Hashem said so. That we're not doing it as a result of a reason, of any understanding, but we're doing the mitzvahs because Hashem said so, and it's a very high level of serving Hashem. And when our service of Hashem is on that high level, it explains over there that that's even higher than Torah study, because Torah study is comprehension. And mitzvah fulfillment is the will of Hashem, which is even higher than Torah study. And the way I understood what it says in L'kutei Torah over there is that we're talking about serving Hashem on such a high level that we're not doing it for any other reason at all besides that that's the command of Hashem. It's not a result of our intellectual comprehension, but rather Hashem said so. And It says over there that when it's like that, like it says in the pasuk about, it says in the Torah that the pasuk says that he saw the smell of his son was like the smell of the field that Hashem blessed, and then afterwards the next pasuk says, "V'yiton l'cha alikim mital shemaim shani haaretz." Hashem will give you mital shemaim shani haaretz. So the Alter Rebbe explains that the smell of the field, that's this level of the smell of Mashiach, which that's the fulfillment of mitzvahs for no other reason besides for what Hashem said. It says the will of Hashem, which is extremely high level. And when we do it like that, so then the V'yiton l'cha alikim mital shemaim shani haaretz, which is the Teresh Shel and Teresh Shel Peh, is on a much higher level, which seems to be that the comprehension of Teresh Shel and Teresh Shel Peh, the oral Torah and the written Torah, is on a much, much higher level. So that's to know what that is. Practically speaking, the Rambam says that it means that we need to love our fellow Jew with true equality for every single Jew. Every single Jew you have to love equally. And similarly, the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael, it says, is the basis of the whole Torah. So when our love for a fellow Jew is not due to any reason, but rather because the Torah said so, so then we're going to love every Jew equally 100%. And when our fulfillment of the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael is equal for everyone, because we're doing it because Hashem said so, so it's going to be equal. So then our mitzvah, all our mitzvah fulfillment will be at its utmost, and we're not going to feel that one mitzvah is more important than the other, and do one mitzvah with more care, being more careful, and chasam another mitzvah not, because if we realize that all the mitzvahs of Hashem, we're doing it because Hashem said so, they're going to be all on an extremely high level. And Hashem should help that through keeping with the takana of the Rebbe, well, says the study Rambam, which today we concluded the Sefer of Zmanim, which ends off with the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles. And the instruction of the Rebbe is that everyone should light a Shabbos, even little girls should light. Every Jewish woman and girl should light, not only the mother of the house. This is taking the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles to its greatest hider. Hashem should help that we'll have the complete Neir Shaltzia, and it says when we light Shabbos candles, it's going to bring the candles of the Beis Hamikdash, Shlishi, it should be immediately, and we'll have the merit of hearing a new sikha this week from the Rabbi. Allah says that Ki Adinenu, Reinu Rabbeinu, Mishel, and Avad, Ki Adinenu, Reinu Rabbeinu, Mishel, and Avad, Ki Adinenu, Reinu Rabbeinu, Mishel, and Avad.